Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Star Citizen Live Game Dev. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen a Star Citizen Live Game Dev before, it's where we take about an hour out of our Friday, the end of our week, and explore a little bit about the process that one of our developers or a group of our developers do. In the past, we've created characters, we've created creatures, crotch spiders, which we won't talk about. We've done spaceship concepts. Today, we are going where no game dev has gone before, into the realm of VFX and exploring some of the work that our team is doing, developing our gas cloud tech for Star Citizen and Squadron 42. And joining me on the show right now are two people that I was going to say need no introduction, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time they've been on the show, so I guess we should do an introduction. I always do an introduction anyway. Jacob and Oliver from the VFX team. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, good, thanks.
So, welcome to the show. This is our first time on the show. Let's tell folks a little bit about who you are and what you do for Star Citizen. We'll just start at the top and go down. So, Jacob, who are you? What do you do?
Hey, I'm Jacob. I'm a VFX technical artist working at CIG for S42 and PU.
and what does a technical VFX artist do?
I guess I could confidently say that we mostly work within a program called Houdini, as it's what we work in most of the time. It's a bit like 3ds Max and Maya, but just a bit different. It's a bit more technical and a bit more
suited for particles.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a simulation-based program, which makes it great for dealing with VDBs and gas cloud.
All right. And how about you, Oliver?
So I'm Oliver. I'm the lead visual effects technical artist. As Jake said, we work on the Houdini pipeline, and we also support the visual effects teams and other teams around the company working on the PU and Squadron, and helping them with the tools and the processes. And we're going to go through one of those processes today.
Awesome. So we folks who have been following the project for a while know that we started our gas cloud tech for Squadron 42, developing a location called the Coil. Folks who have been following saw that first in the vertical slice that we did a little while ago, or a lot of while ago. And now we're currently looking at ways to bring that tech into the persistent universe right now. Through I know that you guys are experimenting with the Lagrange points and stuff like that. So why don't you go ahead and start your screen share? I'll get rid of the cameras, and you can show us a little bit about what you've been working on.
So yes, so we showed at last CitizenCon the jump point, and what we're going to do today is show how that jump point was created. We did it in Houdini using the gas cloud tech, and we are going to talk about the processes that we make with it, and also doing the parent and child relationship. And that is where we have a large gas cloud for just doing the very long distance far away shots, and then where we put a smaller one in the middle where we get up really close to it and we see all the detail, and that's what we're going to try and do within an hour today.
Before you get started, let's go ahead and move my little camera off the corner here. I'm just looking at myself and slow. Yeah, there we go. That way we can see the work. And you're going to have to explain what we're looking at right now. This doesn't look like a gas cloud.
It doesn't look like a gas cloud. So in Houdini, we start with geometry. And our workflow has evolved over quite long, with everyone who's worked on it has changed slightly. One of the things that Jake brought to the gas cloud workflow was how we use geometry and Houdini to make the big gas clouds we see. The first thing is we're going to look at this peg head. It's a classic Houdini primitive. Scale it up for just size so it fits in the world better, and we're going to convert it to this fog volume. This is now we can export that to game, and we can see it here. This, as you can see, is the pig head as a volume, but it's really base. It's very solid. It's quite nice how we can see it really quickly, but we want to make it really nice and cool. So we're going to just start by like, we're seeing it right now where we don't actually have any shadowing on it. So if we put the sun shadows on it, we can now see that we get some detail in here. And we also have like a very like simple light that we have at the moment. So what's like really great about this tech is that we can author like all these shapes that we want and put them in, and that's really fantastic, and that's something which we haven't really like been able to do in games before. So let's go back into Houdini and start off making something.
Yeah,
just for the folks that are in the chat right now, the pig head is just a standard piece of test geometry that's within Houdini.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
And it's a bit of like a Houdini trope, so I had to show it. I'm sorry, everyone, but
it's a Houdini meme. It's not something that's going into Star Citizen before I see the Reddit thread, and then I have to get that email from CR. What did you say we were putting in the game today, Jared?
It's good to note that the style of modeling to create this gas cloud is there's so many different ways of doing it. This is just one of the ways to do it, and I think until we plan to do all of this, I haven't actually seen modeling gas clouds in this way using essentially like layers. You'll probably see the result of that quite soon.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because what I'm doing at the moment is I'm trying to like create a polygon of the big forms that we're going to use later on, and we're going to do this quite rough to start, and then maybe if we have more time we're going to add in the detail later on. But at the moment we're just like playing around with like the shapes that we can get and make something quite interesting to look at, because we found that some of like the best things that we can like see that we can fly through are like these very like abstract forms as well, and it does like change from location to location. So like for instance the jump gate that we saw had that, we called it the Owl Nebula because it had this like very magnetic theme to it, which had looked like owl wings, which someone brought up, and then we couldn't get away from like calling it that. And that's sort of like based around the lore of how like the jump points work. So like for each different thing that we do, we're sort of going to be playing with different methods of creating things.
Now, right off the bat, we are dealing with gas clouds today. The space in space, like nebula and stuff like that. What the tech that we're talking about today isn't what's going to be used for volumetric planetary clouds, and it's not what folks can look forward to for Crusader, for instance, which is a gas giant. Those are different initiatives.
Yeah, and it's really important to understand that they're all really different challenges as well, because like the thing with the gas clouds is that they can actually be bigger than the planets, and then like also just trying to like tile clouds across a planet is a completely different thing. And it's a really interesting like to have all these different technical challenges that we're having to deal with at the moment.
Yeah. So what we're exploring this week is gas clouds in space, nebula, the likes of that. As far as atmospheric stuff, that's not what we're talking about today. It's not what we're showing today. This isn't the process for that. And for creating a gas giant planet like Crusader, again, different initiative, different tech. So that's not what we're doing here today. Just to set some expectations early on in the show. So yeah, what you started with a simple strip, and then you've just been mutilating this thing.
Yeah, this is one of the big challenges when it comes to modeling the larger forms of the gas cloud. Is you're trying to model like essentially like an abstract shape. You're trying to model chaos in a sense, because you just want really random shapes, big forms. And hand modeling it can be quite tricky because you're trying to like create randomness when instinctively as an artist you're trying to create something with actual shape.
Okay. So this thing you're doing in the lower right in the engine, we refer to something that looks like this as like flow graph. Does this function similar to flow graph?
Ish. Oh, also, Ollie, poly extrude, you need to help at the back.
Thank you. That's why he's here.
We said that was going to happen when we invited him. It's like, oh, this just means I get to backseat drive his work, don't I?
Sorry, yeah, it's
talking about it all week.
It's my time. Sorry, what's the question?
No, I was saying. So what are we doing? What are these steps that you're doing here on the lower right hand corner? The transform, the blast, the mountain, the bend. What do each one of these do? You don't necessarily need to hit each one, but
yeah.
What's happening with these?
So Houdini is a node-based program, unlike 3ds Max and Maya, where you apply a function to it. So you select your polygons, and then you do an extrude to create a cube, for example. Houdini works in a similar sense, but instead of keeping things in a function and just having code in the background, say you want to perform this action, Houdini actually has all of these in nodes, so it's totally non-destructive. So if Ollie went all the way to the back of his, to the top of his network, you would start from your, you'll be able to see the original grid that he created from. Yeah. So it's just totally non-destructive, and it's actually one of the big benefits of Houdini.
Is that non-destructive workflow?
Yeah, because then you can start sampling data at different points of the network, which is actually what we need to do, and actually how is the only way we can overcome some of the technical hurdles when we start dealing with things as complex as the coil. We need to know and extract data from our models at different points of its creation. So we need to know maybe the size of a feature, and then as before and after you've performed an action on it, so we can make corrections if need to be.
And you have some kind of live link between Houdini and the engine here.
Well, no, we don't actually. But
how are we seeing the?
What's so good
exporting that fast?
It just updates really well, which is really convenient. So where did the gas cloud go? I actually scaled this object up, which is why we had some slowdown. But what it's really good to just do is just to view these things in editor as really quick as we can. So this is actually quite big actually.
Dense. You did scale up by 50, and then you did the output back.
Yeah, we don't have any reference item to show the scale here.
Yeah, and that's something which is something we need to figure out really. So what I'm doing at the moment is just sort of figuring out what the lighting is going to be, and I'm also going to make this a little softer to start with. But what we have at the moment is really harsh cubes, and let's just improve this lighting a lot more. Where do my light go? It's over here. Cool. But our next stages will be to make this volume look a lot more interesting from what it is. What's fun is that we can actually get in these quite quick shapes to start with, and then also to add all the high frequency detail, and then we'll start looking for locations to actually put something new. And what we're going to do is put a station in, and then we're going to dress up around that station as well. So
cool. Yeah, so folks in the chat asking what gas cloud tech could be used for. While as we've stated, this isn't what's going to be used for something like Crusader or even for atmospheric clouds. This can be used to make the space around a star system much more interesting and much more dynamic. This is about making space more than just black, empty space.
Mm.
Yeah, things like celestial bodies, not planets. You got maybe asteroid fields, and then you have a gas cloud covering it to just make it a bit more, or a derelict ship in the middle of a nebula, or maybe spilt oil around a gas, and it forms around the ship.
Right. Yeah, and nebulas are real easy go-to, like the Mutara Nebula in Star Trek 2. So I was going to bring it back to Star Trek. Yeah, I was going to bring it back to Star Trek. Yeah, on any given day, I'll bring it back to Star Wars or Star Trek. It's going to be one of those.
Yeah.
So no, Gombrich, not gas cloud tech for Crusader. It's a different tech, is what we're saying. It's different. They're not the same. So this not being the thing that we're using for Crusader does not mean that Crusader is 2D. It's that it's a different tech that's being used for that.
Yeah. We kind of ruled out. Well, not. We explored VDBs and kind of said, not quite the tech that we should be using.
Yeah. Now, different technologies, different solutions for different problems.
And we don't like it's in policy, wasn't it? That we did try it, but for what it is, it's not the right thing, and that's sometimes that happens, and that's also just the great learning experience, really, of what we're doing. So let's do it like that. Okay, so we have a simple base form at the moment. What I'm going to do is start adding some noise in, and this is going to start providing us with some actual detail on the VDB itself, because at the moment we just got these large abstract forms, but we really want to sort of distort it more, add more noise within itself, and just make it just a lot more interesting, because at the moment it's nice, but we could do better. I think what we want to do.
Getting.
Captain Flint, that's certainly an interesting question, but these aren't the folks who would be able to answer that. Remember, folks, these are VFX artists, so questions today should be about process and about art. If you're looking for gameplay applications, those are usually the realm of designers.
Yeah, we make the tools for artists to easily make an easier process for them to actually model this. So right now what Ollie's got is a very flat base form to create all the larger shapes, but as you can see, the CIG cloud detail doesn't mean it's going to be used for clouds. It's actually just inside of this node is a more complex network, which we've simplified to make the UI just show values for artists to tweak and to easily create detail on these gas clouds without them having to constantly figure out how am I going to add detail. Me and Ollie will kind of go in and explore different ways to do it and then package these up in a much more friendly way.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm just trying to add more large-scale offsets, distortions to the volume itself, and then we'll add more of the higher frequency stuff on the gas cloud.
Lord Styles has an interesting question. How can gas clouds or nebulae even exist within a star system due to the pressure of the solar wind? And I'm going to say that's a question for the designers who have to work that out.
Come with the backstory.
Yeah, that's one of those things that luckily artists don't have to worry about.
We just make the pretty pictures.
Yeah, what is quite interesting.
No, after you.
What is quite interesting about the gas cloud itself is that it does drive gameplay parameters. So, for instance, the pressure, we have atmosphere systems within the gas cloud entity. So whenever you go inside the volume of one, it will drive a pressure value in the atmosphere, and that drives other systems. So what we can do is that we actually drive the particle effects in there. So you see more different types of particle effects, and the intensity increases when you go deeper in and the pressure gets bigger. So it's quite interesting how these different systems end up being tied together, and that's something that like happens quite a lot across Star Citizen, where we tie a lot of these parameters together.
Like what folks who saw the vertical slice for Squadron 42 saw how the coil had some adverse effects on the ship systems, with the communications being garbled and stuff like that. So it's there are certainly gameplay elements to this work, but again, which gameplay elements come into play when, where, and how are the realm of the system designers as opposed to the VFX artists. Zondor has an interesting question. Do you find Houdini Pyro VFX, or do you find Houdini Pyro FX better in your opinion than non-node based pipelines in like a program like Fume FX?
It's kind of just we were talking about this earlier. I'm biased towards Houdini's Pyro because I'm more of a Houdini kind of person. I've used the Pyro solver and the whole Pyro tech a bit more robustly, and it is capable of really powerful things. One of the perks of Houdini being node-based is that even the solver, like, or the calculation that happens to calculate how a smoke sim should operate is all totally exposed. So I'm able to go into essentially the code, not quite code, but like the node that builds up this entire solver. And I can manually tweak the parameters. In Fume, I can't quite, but it is kind of like you pick your tools for it. I know Fume does produce results a lot faster and a lot easier than Pyro. Pyro can be a bit, you got to work at it, a bit like clay. But yeah, I mean, Fumes are perfectly valid. I think Jake Gainey, our assistant creative director, I think his title is.
Is that his new title? He was assistant art director the last time I talked to him, but
I think that was it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He uses Fume quite a bit. He doesn't really use Pyro, and some of the stuff that he produces just with Fume is crazy.
Yeah, he's got when I talked earlier about different artists bringing different methods and different and we learn every time that we do this. Jade Gainey is one of these people who's done that. He takes these Simmons from Fume Effects, brings them into Houdini, and then has them as separate node chains. So at the moment we're just going down one linear path, but he would have quite a few different aspects in, and then build up and layer up the simulation and the VDB grids. And it's a really versatile method. And that's why Fume's great, but Fume with Houdini is really super powerful, and it does everything that we need it to do.
So that station does a little bit to show us the scale that we're working at here.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find a nice area. I think where it was probably best.
Location to go to. But yeah, we've got another artist, Jake Dunlop. He uses particle sims as his base. So we all have different methods.
Yeah, that's one of the neat things about. We see this quite often through different departments in CIG. It's a push towards using the tools that our artists are most effective with. And it's like, if you're more effective with this, then use that. If you're more effective than that, then use that. And we have an entire tools team that works to build all of the connectors and the translators that are necessary to allow that to happen. It's cool.
Yeah, and they both give they all give results, good results, but different results as well. So if you want more of this kind of we're going to have to use a Fume simulation. Or if we want another particular, we have to use a particle simulation, and then we have to start maybe thinking about tools that would help aid the process. So if an artist who uses Fume can't quite get the result that he wants with the particle, that the particle workflow produces, we've started this where again Ollie and I start to come in what tools do they need to make this easier so any artist can come and use this, so it's not exclusive to this one artist.
Haha, got into game. So what's really great with this process of being able to copy, get that volume into game, is that we can just really quickly fly around it. And I made this pretty big now, so it's going to take a while to fly around, but it gives you like a good like idea of what you're looking at. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's still really rough, and I think a lot of what we're going to make this session is going to be quite rough. We did a couple of dry runs earlier, and we were going over time, so we had to like speed it up a little. So we'll point out the things where we would spend more time on, and like make it nicer, more presentable. Because we can see here that we're not getting very good noise at the moment on this section, and that's something we can improve further down the line in Houdini. So what we want to do now is add a child Vdb in here. So this is going to be a local Vdb which is going to sit around this station. I think, like, Jake, what do you think? Do you think I should make this bigger?
I think you should embed. They got to embed that station into something else, into the VDB, so you can add a bit of detail.
Quite thin. Like maybe I should put it on here. Let's put it on the cloud bank. Yeah, let's do that.
Like the Star Trek Voyager intro.
Yeah, let's just whack him in there. See what happens.
That's cool. Yeah. Maybe a gas mining station. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's figure out where this guy sits.
Yeah. It's one of the challenges is that when you go location scouting in Engine and then you try to do it in Houdini, you just get lost very easily because they look very different. Your sense of perspective is changed.
I think I should rotate this. I did rotate it. That's good. Okay, so we think he's there. You think it's that one?
Yeah, that looks right. Yeah, you've got that whole. Yeah, that looks right. Gotta guess where it is.
Right. So let's pop a sphere down there.
So what he's trying to do now is, because if the way that our parent-child tech works is that when you put in another VDB, a child VDB, into a parent VDB, what it actually does is it chops out that chunk out of the parent, and what you see is the child VDB. And some of the things that can happen is seams. You'll be able to see like a slight separation between them. So the method that Ollie's using is we cut the chunk out of the parent, and then we do our process to up-res it or add more detail to it, so it still looks connected when you're really far away, but when you're approaching it with Qt, for example, you can start to see the detail start to fade in, which is the entire process of having a parent-child relationship, is to bring back some of the detail, that point of interest that's lost because your parent VDB is just so large.
Yeah, this is a process we had to develop for working on the coil, because we have the coil, which is like this outstanding location, but it's huge, and we got to get right inside of it. And as we want to get spaces in there which are really tight and also expansive. And one of the issues with working with these VDBs is that we have this memory limit. At the moment, I've got quite a reasonable memory limit. Yeah, it's quite good. But if we go too high, what we'll do is just run out of like graphics processing power. And there's a trick that we can see the voxels quite clearly here, that one of these across is going to be just really big if it's just a huge thing. So like at the moment, this is really kind of small compared to the coil. We have a station in there which is probably about this size, and this station probably just sits sort of like here. So what we have to do is have this child there to like make the play space realistic for us. And we also use this tech for the coil tunnels and the interiors as well, because we need to have those at high res.
Yeah, like the jump point that we showed off at CitizenCon, the jump point location would, the entirety of that area would sit in maybe 100 by 100 voxel cubed area, you won't be able to get any detail at all if we just worked at that scale. So that's where the whole parent-child came in. We could put in a more high-res VDB in that point of interest location to make it a bit more pretty to look at, rather than just a couple of boxes. That's all you would have seen, just a couple of boxes with different densities.
Do you happen to remember what...
Oh.
I think it's going to come back. I'm going to try to have my faith in Houdini. But it's okay. We're at the point where if it doesn't come back, we'll be okay. We got the saved one.
Can we all tab to the other engine and look around there while it's resurrecting itself? We had some questions in chat about how performative this is. Is this something that would chunk the frame rate as it is right now, or?
Implementation has been this is something we have to keep an eye on, because rendering 3D volumetrics in games, not many people do it, and the reason why people don't do it is because it honks your graphics card. So this is something which we're just always looking at, and this is partly with the rendering and how many voxels we see on screen, as well as the lighting. The lighting cost is a huge thing. That's why a lot of our lights are quite static in here. At the moment, we have this little animated light that we can see, but calculating that all the time, or calculating a full light with shadows, is very hard. So we have to make sure that we're doing the performance analysis on it all the time. When we're building it in very just logical ways, instead of things which are going to be just really bad for the user, for your playing experience. So yeah.
That's why we the gas cloud's actually static and not an animated gas cloud.
Right.
Because it has to, every time you load a gas cloud, it's got to start calculating the lights, it's got to process the VDB file itself, and it can take some time to do. So why it's not an animated, because the VDB file format is actually a static format. Otherwise you need to render X amount of files to play over each individual frame. So
do the particle simulations are they generally run on GPU or CPU to simulate?
Bit of both, actually. I think we're now starting to go towards the GPU because it's just better. But before we were primarily CPU, but now we've got a lot of stuff on the GPU, so we're taking a bit of stress off the CPU. Just means we can add more particles.
Right, and I know a lot of that. A lot of the prep work for Vulkan will help with that as well.
I think a few of our artists can actually finally crank up those particle counts and a lot of curl noise. One in particular.
You know what? I picked the wrong area.
I say, where do we get that cube from?
Where's the cube from?
Where's the cube from? Did I say the right one? Got gas child. Yeah, that's the right one.
Have you picked the wrong location?
I've not picked the wrong location. That would be very embarrassing. Yeah, that's
the wrong location.
That's the wrong location. I did it. I knew I would do this. Okay. This is we can fix this. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry.
But this is one of the issues is there's the disconnect between what you see in Engine and what you see in Houdini. So, especially with something as big as the coil, it's quite difficult to find where you are.
That's why it's important for us to get this stuff in early and quickly, because we don't want to work in Houdini and then go to game and then be oh, why is it wrong? Like we did.
For those asking questions about Vulkan, since I mentioned it, point you to Calling All Devs from a month or a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. We had our Director of Graphics Engineering, Ali Brown, on, and he talked at length about Vulkan and what you can expect from its implementation in Star Citizen. So he already said it far better than I could. So you should check that out. It's up on our YouTube channel right now.
Cool. So what we see now is this is the child VDB. If I just turn down the density quite a lot, you can see it cuts out the parent one when it renders it. So what we do to do this upres is that we take a copy of the high res version and then paste it back in to the child, and then we sort of like make that more like gradually more detailed, and we put more detail around that location, because like you want to fly around something that
That's good.
well, like just like instead of having like the large blotchy bits, you want to have like the final stuff. So I'll just go and start doing that, I guess. What I'm gonna do is probably going to hijack what I did earlier and use that as a base for making this child VDB. Although I should do the copying of the versions. What is the tool I'm looking for, Jake?
Volume merge.
Volume merge. I made it as well, and I can't even find it.
I was going to say something. I just wanted to see how long it took you to figure it out.
Yeah. Even Jared knows the node you want.
Uh-oh. Cool.
Yeah. So the cube's just trying to find the actual locations. Hopefully you're going to make something nice for us, right? No pressure.
I, for one, think it's going great.
Oh, thanks. So that's what we want.
Doesn't look like much, but it's it never does when you take a slice out of a larger chunk. Where's the parent gone?
Where is the parent gone? I'm just going to check that.
You got a child with no parent.
Careless. Very careless. No.
Finding all the bugs.
I wonder if that is... oh, yeah.
Oh. Oh, have you reached the limit?
I might have done.
Yeah, it's 25 million.
Is that 25 million?
No, what you sliced out was 25 million. Yeah. This is where Houdini comes in useful, is that it's very data driven, and we can kind of guess how it's going to perform in engine just by looking at the data and the values that Houdini is analyzing. What are you trying to figure out?
Why it's so large?
Your transform's huge. It's 4 times the area.
How do you... Sorry.
Well, look in the viewport. The cube's massive in relation.
Yeah, and then it's interesting how it's only cutting out.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of like doing the inverse of it. It's filling and then subtracting a hollow cube on the inside.
Silly me, I got the inputs wrong way around. Duh. There we go. There we go, that's better.
Right.
Now we're cooking.
Yeah. So you can't really see a change. You can kind of. You can see the seam. So it has copied and pasted it across. So that what's the space station is now like a higher res child VDB. So this now allows Ollie to add a bit more detail that you wouldn't be able to on the parent to the points of interest location. Modeling in this scale is quite tricky because you don't really have a point of reference on scale. What do you use? How many addresses across?
Right. I mean, you already grabbed a space station. It's about as big as you can get at the moment.
I do use that reference quite a lot. I like Well, the Gladius is like 20 meters across, 40 meters wingspan. So like you have to make sure that like that's like a nice benchmark to use. I could use a person, but like this is Star Citizen. We got Gladiuses to use.
20 Gladius across, 4 cutlasses in height.
Yeah, that's not in the right position. So I'm gonna just like start that workflow again to add some more stuff on top here.
Should use the sphere one. That was quite good.
Oh yeah, I should use the sphere one. How are we doing for time? We could probably do it.
About 20 minutes left.
It'll be faster.
Yeah, maybe better to start again. So, welcome to Star Citizen Live.
Yeah, there's no one way to do things. There's 20 ways to do the one thing.
Yeah.
For everything.
Mm-hmm. That's why they call it game development, not game construction.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there with a set of blueprints. Everything's already been figured out for you. All the engineering's been done. You just have to follow instructions. That's not how this works.
Yeah, so he's trying to create that abstract shape again to what he did with the grid before, to give a bit of complexity. So you want to be able to see into the sphere right now. It's just we'll create a hollow, a filled sphere. Words, a filled sphere.
I was just going to let you go. I wanted to see where you were going.
Please stop me.
God, save us.
I know. In theory, I'm supposed to be here to save you when that happens, but sometimes I just like to watch the train wreck. I'm just like, where's he going? Where's he going?
It's like he's ticking fast.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm gonna do that referencing again. I have to do.
Oh, don't forget your rotations.
Yeah, and like doing this is really fun. I did a couple of tests over the last couple of days to make sure like what we're doing might be actually interesting for everyone. And it was just super light. It was a blast. Like just working with this tech, it's just great fun. And it's really just it's just great to like use it, and you can just make so much lovely stuff with it. So that's.
I think one of my favorite parts is working out the different ways you can create it. There's there's the pyro simulation, there's a particle simulation, just build it by hand. I think at one point I tried simulating life cycle of stars. That went well.
That was we should explore that again. I think
I still think it's a valid method.
I think it's a valid method.
So what we were hoping to do was that an artist would create a base shape or just populate an area of particles, and he would place celestial bodies in here, like suns and stars. And what we were hoping to do is simulate over time, if the star gets dense enough, it would collapse on itself and explode and spew more particles. And then the gravity of the star would start pulling the particles towards it. And as it dies and explodes, it would push it away.
Can you tell that Jake was watching a lot of like physics YouTube videos at that point?
Yeah, I think watch the other Neil deGrasse Tyson science videos.
And like, I think like that's a great method. Like actually taking from that life as well. Like what we're doing wrong here, I would actually say, is that we're just creating from randomness, and we don't have much like reference in the background. And like when people like really start doing this, they do go get that reference. And it's just you need that when you're like doing art creation stuff. It's really
yeah.
When you look
that's why we do concepts.
That's why we do concepts. Yeah.
It's I think it's quite tricky when you just pull up like the Eagle Nebula or the Horsehead Nebula, and you say, I'm going to model that, I want that in my game. You're kind of saying, how do I do it?
Yeah, and there's a really like abstract as well, because they're like artist interpretations a lot of the time as well. So it's all it's hard to
I think we're losing your audio there.
Oh, sorry. You hear me okay?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, back.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of those are artist interpretations of like what the data is. So it's kind of interesting to try to like find like the truth in that as well. So this is weird. This is going to be interesting. So I'm just copying this on.
Detail.
Yeah, let's put this in now and then see how it looks, and then and see where we've lost our station. Oh, it's got a nice little pocket down here. This could work. Yeah, like one of the things that is really important when we're actually looking at doing this in the locations is actually bedding it into the scene, because right now we've just got blank space around it. And what we do really is like this parent that we see, this big one, and the child. The parent is huge in comparison, and that does a lot of like the background spacescaping, and we do a lot of fading in there, and we mix that with like planes of we have this like shader called VFX transparent, and we use that to fill the large areas behind it. And then we start putting the VDB on that, so like you really bed in from just like a very soft thing to this like very wholesome volume, and then we have the finer detail with the child, and then when we go down further, we'll start to see more PFX showing up, the ones that are driven from the gas cloud itself, as well as like the local effects to like help spacescape the scene. And those are really important because they like, especially like flying through coil tunnels, they give you like a really important like sense of scale and like distance around the player. So and that's something that it's quite easy to lose, like where you are within one of these gas cloud forms. So yeah, let's drop a light in.
Yeah, when modeling, I think one of the bigger challenges is to actually try to make it fit. You're trying to fade it into the universe. So towards the edges, you want maybe like a simulation or a density fading from nothing to something, so it just doesn't look like you've just put a massive ball of gas right in the middle of nowhere and just like, yes, this is acceptable. This is how it is.
Grounding in, because like this scene that we have at the moment, it doesn't make sense. Like, what is this thing doing here? And that's like what we have to do. We have to like build the history of like a system, of a location, and like audio environment artists will tell you like that is such an important thing to do when you're making like video games. You tell a story through the art in situation. So
yeah, like if you put like an asteroid field like in the middle of the sphere on your parent, you could maybe say, oh, maybe this was a planet and exploded, and it was just mined and then collapsed on itself, and it released all of these the gas and dust. This is how it came to form, kind of thing. Just need a bit of a history to it.
Yeah. Now, can these VDBs be used for things other than gas? Like, we use these for asteroid fields or other stellar phenomenon?
I think we're looking at not phenomenon, but I mean, it's as much as you can think of what other things could use a nebula for. But the data in itself that the VDB offers, such as density, can be used to help populate a level. So instead of having an artist hand placing asteroids in a vast area as large as a parent is, they could use the VDB's density value to start spawning asteroids in a massive, vast area, and it would, you could have asteroids only in very thick areas. So you'd have asteroids in the more dense parts, and then not so many, maybe a couple in the low density areas.
Yeah, we have the asteroid gas cloud entity, which does that. Like, I didn't want to show it today because a lot of the defaults are Squadron stuff, but we saw an image of it yesterday and it was really phenomenal. And I did play around with it. I just popped square, VDB square, and put some rocks in the other day, and just like flew through it. It was really fun, just like dodging around all these asteroids.
I mean, it could be really good when it ties into gameplay. So if we did have things like EM distortion on your ship, and you're mining, and or the asteroids are in the dense parts, but the dense parts is really really dangerous. You could actually lose your ship or just get hurt just by mining, by getting too close, being too venturous.
So we started adding some detail in here. I've just lightened it up because it's still quite thick here. One of the things that we spend a lot more time on is making sure that we're not getting too much noise down the voxels, as well as making sure that we're bedding this parent into the child better. I'm really spitballing with this design, but kind of interesting having this thing there. It's kind of fun. Should we fly through it?
Sure.
See how that looks. Ooh.
And just to answer one of the questions I saw someone say, with simulation time, it's close to real time, but in Houdini speaking, because we're not looking for pyro solvers or simulation to actually give us the detail. We just want it to give us the density for us to work with. We actually add the detail after simulation. So with Fume, so when an artist does a simulation in Fume, they will take it to Houdini, and then Houdini can start processing with that cloud detail node to add the detail that the solver wouldn't be able to ever give.
Yeah, and it's like we mentioned earlier, it's a tools in your arsenal, right? All these things, and every different artist has sort of come at it and sort of approach it from a different method, and every time they do that, we learn this new thing, and that's it's really fun. It's really exciting. Oh yeah,
just makes it more difficult when teaching new artists how to make a nebula. It's which method do you want to learn?
Yeah.
Funny enough, the Jake or Jake's method. Because we've got Jake Daney and Jake Dunlop, and then me, Jake, that and Ollie that work on VDBs.
If you're called Ollie and you work with volumetric software, please apply. We definitely do.
How many do we have now?
I don't
3,
know.
4?
I don't know how many.
Or Ollies.
Not enough Ollies, I can tell you that right off the bat.
We don't have as many as we do Chris's. you ever have to go through the address book in Outlook and look for a Chris? It's oh my gosh, there's so many Chris's.
Yeah. So I realized that we were actually exporting quite a low res VDB, so I've up res it a bit. Yeah, we'll see when this comes through. Yeah, it's quite nice how we can just export it. What happens in the background is that we take this VDB file and then we convert it to our own special CIG voxel file, and that is a lot more optimized run-in engine, and we compress a lot of the values down because we don't need all the values that are in the VDB. No, the VDB file format is a great file format. It's used in films, games, and science. Mm-hmm. But it's fantastic. But we have
trimmed down version.
Yeah, because we have 32-bit, 64-bit values there, and we don't need that for this. So we trim things out, and we have to make it a bit better to read. So we can see this stepping here. That's coming from that copy paste. What I would normally do is actually take that high res version and then add some more detail in, because what we can see if we look at the volume slice is that disconnect in the voxel sizes. So if you can see here, we have every polygon here is one of the voxels of the high-res child, and then this parent is what we see with the blue squares at the moment. And this is actually a really minor example of it. But like in other cases, we'd have like one blue square, which would be like half of this. So that's really like where this parent-child workflow comes from.
Yeah, it's a good example for the jump point. That's what you would have seen if we didn't have a Child Vdb in there with a much higher resolution around the points of interest.
Yeah, because all you see is like this sort of blurry fog. And what we do is that we layer some of the PFX on there to get that like really intimate, like quite close to your canopy detail. But between that and just that big voxel, there's such a difference that we need some intermediate stages to do that. Okay, what should I do to add this?
I mean,
you got about 3 minutes. So you want to take another flight around? You want to take another flight around?
Yeah, sure. That sounds good.
But what we could do if Ollie handed his project file to another artist, they could change the sphere to maybe a cylinder and run it through the exact same network. You would just get an entirely different result just by changing the shape or changing the amount of polygons you had on the sphere itself.
Oh, we could do that. We could just completely trash this.
Well, get us let's get a screenshot for the
get the money shot
for the YouTube thumbnail and for social media before we mess it up.
No, you trust me to make nice work.
No, I trust you to make nice work. It just it's the non-destructive workflow. It's just.
But because it's non-destructive, we actually allows designers to create things like the coil and white box the coil with VDBs instead of just geometry. They can give Houdini the piece of geometry, Houdini, and that's it. They will just hit save, and then they get sort of like art would actually create this network before this. So it's what art says. This is a nice starting point. This is what we're imagining for it. So when you put your designer geometry in here, this is what it could look like.
And of course, it should go without saying, but we're going to say it anyway. This is less than an hour's work.
Yeah.
Of what we've done.
Yeah.
So what we're showcasing here, what we always showcase on Game Dev, is not even a close approximation to what can actually be delivered with the tools at our disposal and the work of many folks on the team going through and optimizing and cleaning up. And
yeah, let me show you some of the other examples I did quickly. This is the one that we did earlier today. So this, you can see this big parent here, and then we whacked this little station in down here. And it's the same workflow. We had this all this local detail. You couldn't do it in the big one, but this is another really
did that in an hour as well.
We did them all in an hour. And there was also this one, which is quite interesting. This one has some quite nice details. My local childs aren't very exciting, and this one's out of place. What are you over there?
So this whole time we've been working in a level that actually had multiple gas clouds and stations going.
Yeah.
I
mean, just in case things went wrong, I had backups, guys. I mean, they went partially wrong a couple of bytes, but we didn't have to resort to Plan B.
That's good.
And then where's the other guy? It's really easy.
I guess you could say in 3 hours you made 3 different nebulas.
In 3 different locations.
Yeah.
And this actually takes the pig head as an example. I don't know if you can make out what I did to him. Poor guy. Yeah.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, you see the eyes. The light looks like it's the eye of it.
Yeah, and I think the ears there. And they just stuck another station in. It's good fun. And it's just really interesting. Oh, we can actually see the particles here. I don't know if this is going to come through on the stream, but if I move through, you can just see these particle effects.
I can see them.
So when we fly through, we'll be able to see those, and that just adds so much more deets. Ooh. Oh yeah, there's a lot of
Quite cool.
turbulence on as well. So
Oh yeah,
the
you
ship's
can
going wild.
drive. Yeah, you can use density to drive forces as well.
Yep,
Makes it a dangerous landing zone.
it's quite interesting actually.
Vape station. Welcome to Vape Station. Jeez.
Yeah.
You really piled it on this one.
Oh, just every citizen with a vape, just walking through the station. It's a requirement.
All right. We are at time. Let's go ahead and wrap this up before it degrades anymore. You can go ahead and stop the screen share, and then if you can, we'll just there you go. Oh, now you're in the big screen. Hold on. Now you're in the big screen. Now I'm covering you. Hold on. What if I just there's no you moved places, so sorry. So you're just missing Jacob. Sorry, Jacob. So
Thank you.
thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to be here on the show with us. I gotta get Jacob in there somewhere. I'll just get rid of me. There we go. Hold on. We'll do this. Hi, everybody. So hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to be here on the show with us this week. Remember, Alpha 3.9 is live on the servers right now, so check that out if you haven't already. And Oliver, Jacob, thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday at the end of the week to be here and take us through your process.
Thank you. It's been really nice to show
fun.
this also. Yeah.
This is my best angle ever. But you switched places, so I had to move. So for Stars in Live, that's Oliver. That's Jacob. I'm Jared. We'll see you next week, everybody.